Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Dealing with Mikadono Sisters is a Breeze, Season 1, Episode 2. Another great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we're immediately picking up where Episode 1 ends with you talking to the trio's dad. And he talks about the goals that they have coming up. And I'm so curious, are those goals just like this next couple episode arc? Or is that like the entire seasonal arc building up to the respective things they have? Like Kazuki has a pretty tough performance coming up. There's a karate competition that Nico wants to like win like again in another year in a row. And then Miwa has a pretty tough shogi opponent coming up. So I'm curious if those are going to be like the whole seasonal arc and we're kind of building towards those, getting them better and more acquainted, like and in a better position to deal with those things. Are those going to be the end goals by the end of the season, or are those more like little arcs that we are going to build up to? I'm curious to see what the structuring of this ends up being going forward, but you is seeing this as an opportunity that once again he wants to use this situation as like, if I can cook for them and stuff, I can have us sit down at the dinner, because he's like, how can I help them and all, like what can I actually do? They're busy, even on weekends they don't even have free, they're putting in a time and effort, but I'm mediocre, like what can I really offer them? How can I even help them? But it's like, okay, so what I can do is I can cook them a meal, and then we can hang out and I can pick up stuff from them in that regards. It's like, if I learn more about them, then I'll be able to actually be able to put that into work. So first and foremost, he makes a meal for Nico, but Nico turns him down, because we think back to her childhood where like nannies were like trying to like feed her food, but she was just like, no one gets to tell me what goes inside of my body except for me. And I don't know if that's just because maybe that was soon after maybe they lost their mom, because that hasn't come up in conversation, but their mom is referenced a few times in this episode. So I'm curious if it's a situation that it's a thing of like her mom understood her enough to know like, okay, my daughter wants very specific things. So like it's kind of like she hates like it's that thing of like, you don't like repeating yourself over and over again, and maybe there was new people always coming in that just weren't your mom. Maybe that it stems from that. But she kind of turned down you pretty hard, but it invigorates him even more to kind of put into work and cooking, and she's impressed. She's like, wow, he's really going for it. And she tastes the meal, and he because she had caught him like with a whole bunch of like different recipe books open, and then when he finally cooks for her, she realizes like, oh, like he really went out of his way to make sure that this meal he's making for me, it combines this and this, all to make sure I'm getting the right intake and a balanced intake. It's like he went through so much effort. He also did the same thing for Miwa, and even Miwa comments on like, oh, it's kind of interesting, like they've rarely sat, who knows when the last time they've actually sat across from each other at the dinner. Because I mean, it even seems like even at school it doesn't seem like they really like, except for that one moment in episode 1. I mean, it makes sense, they're in 3 different programs, so there is not going to be a lot of overlap, but it's also the thing of they don't interact with each other. It's also probably like their programming schedules, that the fact is that they probably don't line up. It's like, oh, even during lunch, like Kazuki might be busy, or even Numi. I mean, I say Numi. I'm so sorry. I don't know where the hell that came from. Nico, sorry. So I'm curious, like that could be extra reason, or just they don't think about hanging out because they haven't done it so long at home, if ever. And maybe it's like since their mom's gone, they haven't done it because their dad's rarely home. Because once again, there's no one else at the house, so I think they probably made a whole point of telling their dad to stop staffing the house, or maybe he made the unilateral decision because they kept giving so much pushback and like resistance to the help. Maybe that's also why he brought in you, because it's like, once again, like someone who is a caregiver but also isn't like a nanny or maid, like that resentment they have might die down, and it kind of has. I'm curious. And once again, I'm throwing a lot of speculation based on some of the flashbacks and stuff we saw this episode. But yeah, like he made a specific meal crafted to Miwa as well, which is pretty impressive. Like, not only did he dedicate a meal to one sister, but he actually dedicated meals to all three that would help them. And he made something just for Kazuki that would help maintain her beauty and work on her complexion. But Kazuki wants nothing to do with it because she's like, oh, I see what you're doing here. You're trying to win me over, so ha. And he's kind of like, oh, he's kind of defeated. And because she's rubbing in his face that he's a failure. And it's like, oh, which, you know, you got to give it up to Nico. She tried to be nice and was like, right, just give me the food. If she's not going to eat it. But then the moment before she could take a bite, he was like, if you do that, you're going to be like 45 point some milligrams over, and you really will get chubby, because Miwa was just poking fun at her for gaining a little weight and stuff like that. So it's like, yeah, he's dead serious about this. But then he says, right, like, I will watch over you and make sure we take stock of everything that you put inside your body. And it's like, Jesus Christ, you could have worded that in a better way, because it sounds so dirty, but you so innocent. He's like, what are you talking about? It happens again later on in the episode, but he proceeds to try and get Kazuki to eat, but she refuses to over and over again. And like, the fact is that he can't get her to eat. He's like, okay, so what do I do? So at school, he decides, like, okay, I'm going to go to Kazuki. Like, if I could talk to her, maybe I can find out more about what she likes, and then I can prepare a meal based around that. So he goes to Kazuki. She's surrounded by others. The girls surrounding her, like, I mean, she has that very, like, hey, she's the prince at the school, like, aesthetic and reputation, but she's the most, like, loved person. Seem like, I mean, all three of the sisters, obviously, it's like both. Well, they've all got three different relationships with school. First and foremost, Kazuki is loved by everyone because she's just like, once again, she's got that prince energy that, like, so many of the girls swoon over. Nico is respected by everyone in the club, and I think by other people in, like, not just that program, but all programs, just because she's the top of the top in her, in, like, the combat program. But I think she's more like, she seems to really keep around those kind of associated in the same ballpark, but maybe like same martial arts club or karate club. But, and then we see that Miwa is kind of a loner, but we'll get to Miwa in a second. But first, staying with Kazuki, she tries to put him down, but and I love that Yu tries to go like, no, the fact of the matter is, what was it he said? He said something, I can't remember what it was, but that can be misinterpreted. And she's like, hey, we're gonna deal with that when we get home. And they're like, the girls are like, wait, when you get home, I'm like, wait, are you guys dating? Do you live together or something? And then immediately Yu leaves after that. He's like, all right, I'll have to ask Nico for help. He goes to talk to Nico, but like, he's coming off super friendly. And in her mind, it's like, oh, he thinks he's won me over. That bastard saying that dirty thing that he said to me this morning. Or the other morning, he's like, you know what, screw it. And she's pissed at him. So that's a no on that front. And then he goes to meet with Miwa, but Miwa keeps to herself because she says it, like, she doesn't really know how to communicate with other girls, because they talk about, like, just girly stuff that is, like, not on Miwa's purview. Like, I don't know how to connect with them. So it's even a thing of, yeah, it's like, oh, did you get an answer for this? And Miwa just plainly goes like, the answer is this. They're like, oh, cool. It's like, well, I guess we shouldn't be too surprised of, the Mikadono sisters, like, being so good, and especially Miwa, because she's got a brain for that. She's got the mind for that stuff. But I think it was just kind of like, right, she's not the most approachable, but she kind of puts up walls because of it. So Yu wants to eat lunch with her, but she's running away from him. But luckily for you, and unfortunately for Miwa, she's not athletic. She's athletic enough to surpass him, but only barely. But yeah, they kind of get to talking, and he's like, I get it, I'm a royal, you're a royal as well, so it's harder to connect. And she's like, how are you a royal? And he's like, well, the fact of the matter is, I'm a royal, I'm royally stupid, I'm royally this, and just kind of a royal failure. And he kind of leans into it. It's like, I have this face and just, like, stance that I adopted from my mom, but it kind of goes to waste on me because it's all a facade. She's like, all right, so you kind of got it rough in your own regard. But he's trying to talk her through it, but he's also like, wait, where am I supposed to go with this? She's like, you idiot. If you're going to try and comfort me, at least try and have it planned out what you're trying to say ahead of time. But he makes her laugh and makes her feel good. So she says in the long run, okay, like, they actually have lunch together. And he asks her about Kazuki. And it's like, Kazuki, it's like, I remember back when we were 3, she asked for something very specific from our mom. And then, like, I love Yu's only takeaway was, wait a minute, Well, because obviously Miwa doesn't remember what it was, but she remembers the conversation. But he's like, wait, she remembers that? I guess it makes sense. Once again, she has a mind for this stuff. When you're probably remembering all the rules to shogi and all the different plays, like you got to have a very like exceptional memory. So I think that's probably like her skill, like one of her like amazing skills is like her memory. But yeah, like you is trying to figure out, well, how do I approach this situation? How do I like figure out what Kazuki likes, what she had made for her. But then Kazuki comes in and passes out. My initial thought was, oh my god, is she starving herself just to kind of keep a certain weight for the performance? That's what I thought. But it turns out she's sick. Apparently she's always been very like, she gets sick very easily. And then also like she pushes herself so much that I think that probably also like doesn't like, it probably adds to like, she's already very naturally gets sick, but then you add in like her constantly pushing herself, because I'm sure both of her siblings have this pressure too, but she has a pressure to be perfect all the time because so many people have expectations for her. This is actually something I forgot to talk about at the beginning of the episode, why Yu is going so above and beyond. It's not just like the family unit thing. It's also because he's like, I know what it's like to have such high expectations put on you, and the moment you dashed in, the people around you disappear. He's like, I'm mediocre, and that kind of crushed me a little bit, but I found a way to deal with it. They're at the tippy top. Like, this will shatter them. So he wants them to never have to feel the way he's done. So it's kind of like really sweet. And once I think that part of this story is helping them with their situation is going to make him come to terms with, you know, having a little more faith in himself and not just be very like self-conscious and down on himself like he has pretty much his entire life. But yeah, it turns out Kazuki is sick and she's not willing to listen to anybody because in her mind it's like, right, I don't want to rely on someone. I have to be perfect. I got everyone's expectations. Everyone expects the best from me, so I've got to do it. Like, how pathetic am I? Here am I getting sick? But time and time again, Yu keeps making her stuff, trying to fix her something that will help with her sickness, but she won't listen. And so at one point he comes in, she falls on top of him. He's like, right, how about I help you with your performance? I'll be your scene partner. And he tries, because it's like, right, I am Saboru Ayase's son. It's like, all right, well, it's like, yeah, I debuted at 2. And she's like, wait, my senpai? Because she's like, I debuted at 6. Like, all right, you know, maybe something from his mom did rub off on him. But he recites the line, but the problem is he's so stiff with it. And she's like, oh, that was awful, and pushes him away. And even though he tried time and time again, it's like, I read the entire script. I read it 10 times over. He failed over and over and over and over again. And she kept pushing him away, thinking it's kind of a waste of time. Because in her mind, it's like, I'm not allowed to fail. You know, it's like, because she found out, like, wait, you said you debuted at 2. He was like, yeah, but like, I kept failing audition after audition until my mom put in a word. And she's like, ugh. Like, basically, he got, you know, silver spoon in his mouth. His mom is what made, so she's like, he's never had to put any effort. The thing is, he has put in the effort, but he stopped because it was so heartbreaking that he felt like he could never keep up. Like, they don't know how complicated his relationship with his mom became, because I don't know how much they actually know. Like, I mean, sure, the world probably knows that his mom is going. Not unless we do this twist where it's like, oh, it's set up to be like his mom is going, but maybe she's like off working somewhere else. There could always be that twist or something like that. Like, you know, there's plenty of stories that have done that where you're like, oh, your mom's going. It's like, yeah, she's out of the country or something. Like, it can make it like that. Like, there might not be, like, I leaned into it like she's dead, but maybe she's not. Maybe that's going to be the twist here. Or maybe it is. Like, maybe you are supposed to just take that at face value. I don't know if I actually want to know the answer to that. I'm asking rhetorically, but I'm like, I don't know if I actually want someone to tell me, because I don't know. Because like I said, it seems pretty obvious, like it's meant to be like a no, she died. But like I said, I don't know if that's supposed to be like a giant gag later when he reveals the assumption is. Because like the fact is none of them have brought it up makes me feel like she isn't dead. She's probably out of the country, or maybe I mean, to be fair, dealing like, you know, potential dead parents, like they have a potentially dead mom, so it's a touchy subject that the reason why they don't want to broach it is because they feel like it'd be insensitive, but also it would mean broaching a conversation and having to make them think about their potentially deceased mom. So maybe there's bits and pieces to that element to it. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if I like actually want a definitive answer to that, or do I just want to leave it rhetorical until the show like definitively like, you know, goes like, no, you idiot, she is actually gone. Either way. But yeah, they don't know enough about you and like how he's that, they have a lot of pressure on them, and they've never looked at things outside of their point of view, where it's just kind of like, oh, your parents are a prodigy, you're kind of a failure. But like, how they never really think like how heavy that weighs on him. They kind of say it so naturally, like, oh, you're a failure, how I look down upon him, not thinking about the fact is how much what that feels like. They've never had to worry about that, but that's also because they strive so hard to never be that and feel that. So it is kind of like not walking a mile in someone's shoe type of thing. But ultimately, Kazuki decides like, okay, I'm gonna get up and practice. I can't just lay in bed all day. And she goes downstairs and she catches Yu watching one of her performances, because he's looking at the script. He's like, oh, this is how it's supposed to be delivered. And Kazuki actually goes, oh, I see. Like, he actually is putting in effort. Not only is he going to school and coming home, doing all the chores, he's not only reading over the script, he's doing everything he can just for the purpose of helping me. So when the next day comes, it's like, all right, fine, I'll put aside your woodenness and I'll let you help me because you're putting in the effort. And then in just one line delivery, he nails the emotion of it. And they're like, oh my God, that's so cool. And he's breaking down because he's like, after 14 years of failed auditions, I kind of nailed it. And it's like, oh, that's so great. She's like, here you are tripping about one successful line delivery. But it's like, okay, at the end of the day, you got it. So all right, fine, I'll take your vitamin like meals that you're making. He's like, cool. And she's like, can I ask you for something? And the moment she's trying to say the word, I was like, oh, no carrots? Is that what this is all about? And then she proceeds to list a whole bunch of things. And then Yu's like, wait, is that what this has all been about? You're a very picky eater, and you were too nervous to talk about that because you don't want anyone to know how much of a picky eater you are. So that's where things end. I also love the outro being the way it is, kind of that 3D design and how it's kind of like, I'm curious to see if they shift it. I doubt we're going full Chainsaw Man where we literally have a different ending every freaking episode. But like, I'm curious if like throughout this season, like depending on like, maybe it'd be maybe it just stays Kazuki. But I think it'd be really interesting if there's like 3 different like endings depending on which the episode revolves around which sister. So like, there's one specific to Nico's circumstances, because this one was all about acting, and it was actually really beautiful, like just the scenery of it being designed the way it is, and like her waking up at the end with like you like at her bed. So it's reflective of obviously even just currently, because her being sick and laying in bed and stuff. But but like I said, it'd be interesting if there's one specific to Nico and Miwa. But we'll have to wait to see. I'm also curious. I didn't talk about it, but in the intro, obviously there's some other characters, that side characters I think that are like recurring characters. Like one ends up being this. Cause one of them is the guy I think that beat you up in the first episode as part of the same the karate club as Nico. But there was also another guy, so I'm wondering is he going to end up being someone from like, not unless he's another. Because I would assume like him, the 2 guys and the other girl we're introduced to are all from like, I'd assume the guy or the girl are from like either one's a shogi player, connecting to Miwa, and the other one's an actor connecting to Kazuki. I'd assume that's probably going to be potentially like the breakdown of how that all works. We'll ultimately have to wait to see to get clarity when those characters are properly introduced and what role they play in the story, and especially in relationship to not only you, but more specifically the Mikadono siblings. But yeah, I'm very, very excited to see where the next episode ultimately ends up taking us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.